Awesome. Okay. Um, I've been thinking a lot lately about um, how do we success in what we do. Um, I want to make sure that my efforts in using a wiki are actually worthwhile, that I'm actually getting what I want out of them. So my question is, how do you measure success from your wiki? You know, we love our wikis, we talk a lot of praise about them, but what metrics do you use to measure success to make sure you're actually achieving what you want from your wiki? I would say that some of the metrics that I think people jump to initially would be, well, hey, I have a wiki, so I'm winning. I think a lot of people that use SharePoint probably take this approach. They say, hey, yeah, our team has a wiki and it's there and people, it's there so people can use it, so we're winning. I think there's probably a lot of people that jump to analytics, like how many wikis do they have, how many pages do they have, how many users are there, how many hits, how many edits. These are a lot of the common metrics. Depending on your privacy considerations, you might look at per person analytics, like how many page views does each person have, how many edits person have, or even maybe categorization based on categories of pages or whatnot. You might have some of these metrics. Is that really measuring what we want to measure? Is that, I think those are more measuring the success in a wiki of the wiki, but is it actually answering the question of, hey, why did we set up a wiki in the first place? What did we want from that? Is it really just what we want? And so, yeah, what defines the success for using a wiki in your organization? Why is it that you're using it? So I just want to say I kind of put this together as a thought exercise. It's more me sharing my thoughts and hopefully soliciting feedback either in the Q&A at the end of this or at another time in a breakout session or whatever. But I'm not claiming to have, figured this out. So yeah, let's answer that. Let's ask that question again. Why are we using wikis for a given org? Why does that wiki exist? So one of the rabbit holes I went down, I went to VIA, looked up knowledge management, and I found this little snippet. Knowledge management is an approach to achieving organizational objectives by making the best use of knowledge. Okay, well, what does that mean, organizational objectives? You might say, okay, well, it's organization, like being organized. I guess initially I thought it was more organization as in like a group of people. And so what are the objectives of that organization? If you're a hamburger and you want to sell more hamburgers, how can a wiki help you there? If you're an engineering firm and you're selling engineering services, how is that different? You use a wiki differently and measure whether that wiki is helping you to achieve those goals of your organization. So I went down the rabbit hole a little further, and I tried to distill out some things that are maybe worth considering. There are different approaches to knowledge management. Some people target the technology and try to figure out how they can use it. Some people target their organization itself. How can we restructure the people to better facilitate knowledge transfer? Some people look at it as a whole ecosystem. Based on those different approaches, you might have different perspectives. You might group people together in a community of practice, or you might do knowledge graphs based on how people are connected. There's a lot of different things we could go down there. One facet that I thought was interesting was distilling or kind of categorizing different types of information between tacit and explicit. Explicit is something that's kind of written down, documented, formal. Tacit is more of that internal knowledge. Like, I know how to use this piece of hardware, let me show you. And so there's this graph that talks about can change the type of information as things go on. So in the top left, you have people sharing knowledge, talking about it, maybe an on-the-job training experience. Moving clockwise, we externalize that knowledge into documentation. This is what we're probably most familiar with, writing it down in a Word doc or putting it in a wiki. But then we continue on, we internalize that knowledge and we pull it from resources to ourselves. So a good knowledge management system is going to facilitate all of these aspects. There's a lot of different strategies and how you can apply that. One thing that I think is important to acknowledge is that you can't just mandate that everybody participate. Generally, you're going to get negative feedback or negative from that. And then there's pushing or pulling. You can ask people to push their information into a system, or you can rely on pulling information from people, going and talking to them in their office. And so I'm not sure of the answers here, but think about with your wikis specifically, do you have things built into your wiki that facilitate these two modes of knowledge transfer? Pushing it into a system, that maybe seems obvious, but pulling it from people that are experts, how does that work in a wiki exactly? And then I found a huge list of strategies for knowledge management. And hey, look, the word wikis are awesome. We're winning. But I mean, is that the end of the story? Is that really all a wiki is about? So I went through these and I actually kind of mapped them out. And I think a lot of these strategies or concepts can actually be tackled by using a wiki. The ones in green are more about kind of about the technology and how that technology-based approach can work. The ones in blue are about people, about organizing people or getting them to talk together in the right way. And then the yellow, those are ones I'm not really sure. An expert system, can you really set up a wiki where someone can go ask it a question and it'll spit it out? I don't know if that's entirely possible, maybe really low scale or kind of prototype scale. But we're kind of digging in the weeds here, and I'm happy to talk about these more later, but these aren't really getting to my original question of measuring success. Those were more strategies. But let's go back to, can we use thoughts and those concepts about to measure how successful we are in improving our organizational goals by using a wiki? So in a white paper, I found a list of goals. I thought maybe this would be a good starting point. And in the next few slides, I grouped them together and tried to align them with wiki concepts. So let's say we have a goal to use a wiki to the quality of whatever it is we produce, whatever it is we serve. And maybe that wiki can improve relationships with our customers and how satisfied they are. Well, how do you measure this? What metrics do you use? Can you measure how much you trust the information in your wiki? I mean, there's information in there, but is it accurate? And how do you measure that? Do your customers trust the information in there? Do you use your wiki as a common ground? Do you let them actually see behind the curtain? And then does that instill trust in them, just the fact that you're using a wiki, or is there more to it? Maybe your goal is to use a wiki to be more productive, more efficient. Your employees can be better at using a wiki. Well, have you actually sat down and measured how much more quickly people can find information? We all assume it's true, but have you measured it? Have you measured how long it takes to onboard a new person in your organization? Do you actually acknowledge wiki? We have a thanks feature. There's an awesome extension for that. To actually go in and look at that data to see if it's being used. Wiki can make your organization innovative. Well, we talked about this a little bit in Daren's talk, but are your users very kind of low end or basic edits, or do they dabble in more of the technical part of actually structuring data in the wiki and querying it and putting it to use? Do you use a wiki to track innovative ideas related to your organization? Maybe a wiki can make your organization more competitive. Well, how do you measure that? Do you use wiki to measure something that your organization does that someone do? Can your wiki somehow make it more reliable? Maybe it's just more for internal satisfaction. Your employees are feeling better about their job because they have a wiki and they can get to the information they need. Do you measure it in some way? Have you actually looked at this to make sure it's doing that? And then the goal of improving communication and knowledge sharing. This one's kind of a big one. And I think that, at least in my case, we've used one of our underlying goals. And I like this quote I came up with. I think this could apply to anything, not just a wiki, but without continuous contribution and qualified reviews from everyone in your community, a wiki is just another dumpster of outdated and unreliable information. And like I say, that could be true, of course. You need people contributing to it and verifying that it's still up to date and accurate. But do you measure this? Does your wiki influence the culture within your group? Does it encourage people to work across organizational lines? Or do they stay siloed in their small groups and not talk to the other people in the other building? Do you hear people talking about the wiki? Is it part of their culture? Is it part of their workflow? So these are, I rattled off a whole bunch of metrics there, and I don't want to go over on my time, but I want to talk about some of the ways that we've targeted these metrics. There's some extensions that are out there publicly on GitLab or Hub. One is called Wiretap. Sounds a little bit dangerous, but basically it's an analytics tool to track your users are viewing. And with that, you can get some of those metrics I mentioned early on about, hey, are people actually consuming the content of the wiki? You can look at lots of ways of analyzing this information based on unique users and unique pages. And there's a lot more that that tool could do, a lot more you could do with that information, especially if it was integrated with other data sets. So I'm happy to work on further development of that if people think that that's interesting, maybe for a Create Camp idea. Another extension I really like to share is called Watch Analytics. You know, when we first started using a wiki, we thought, man, this is great. People are using the wiki. It's just like Wikipedia. We know it's going to be trustworthy because people are going to watch pages that they know about, that they edit, and people are going to review those pages when they get changed. And we just assumed, hey, this is great. Well, I'm telling you, that's a terrible thing to assume. It turns out that we can measure this. In these plots, the orange circles represent people. Those are going around the oval. The blue dots represent wiki pages. The lines between the two indicate a person watching a page. And ignore the red for just now. Pages in the middle are watched by a lot of people. That's good. Pages on the periphery, these are only watched by one person. That's bad news. That means if that page gets edited, no one else is going to know about it. Gray lines indicate that that person has seen the most recent version of that page. That's good. Hopefully they're checking it and making sure it's still accurate. Red indicates they have not seen the most recent version. That's bad. That means that that page might have an incorrect statement on it and nobody has seen it yet. The left was the state of our wiki when we first built this tool. So after we realized this problem, we found ways to nudge people in the right direction. And on the right shows how much improvement we had within a year. I don't remember the exact time frame here. The way we did that is we improved the notification and review process within MediaWiki. The watch list system is very vague. It doesn't really help you when you go into the wiki and find things that have been updated. Now there's a very obvious link at the top. Prioritizes pages based on how many people have seen that revision. So pages towards the top with red have not been viewed by anybody And then as more and more people have seen the page, we think, well, maybe it's a little bit less critical and we can put it lower in your list. Button takes you immediately to the diff page that most of you are probably familiar with. Makes it a very easy and obvious workflow. Once you've gone through your reviews, there's a watch suggestion list. It tells you about what you might be interested in based on how different pages are linked. And this will, we hoped that this would improve how much people are watching pages. And sure enough, we could measure that, and we saw a direct correlation of implementing that system and improving our situation. There's a lot of data in here. You can pull up the table and look at the raw data. But we can, of course, display that information in many different ways. We can have a single numeric representation of the state of the wiki. We have that plot that I mentioned earlier. Or you can go one by one and look at different people and see how engaged are they in the wiki, how active are they in reviewing pages they are watching. We can look at that over time, and we can see for a given page how many people have reviewed that page. And then we can see, does it consistently stay reviewed, or does it go long periods of time where people go see what changed? Okay, there we go. Let's see, on any given page, have these tags at the top right. The one on the right is a little more obvious. It tells you how many people have reviewed the page. On the left, the scrutiny tells you, based on that information I just talked about, of the people that have done reviews, how good are they at keeping up with their reviews? Can you trust that they are reviewing it well? And we can look at this information over time. Now I'm transitioning, I should say, to a different extension, and this one is not really released. It's always been a work in progress since like 5 years ago. And I've never fully released it because I wasn't quite sure if it nudged people in the right direction. I started thinking about, hey, could we gamify MediaWiki and entice people to edit more pages and make more edits? But I wasn't sure if that was the behavior I wanted, so I never really put it out there officially. The code's there. You're welcome to tinker with it and help me out. But I wasn't really sure it was the right way to go. So on the left, we can compare people based on the contributions, and not against a full set of people, but just people that are similar to them. That way, if you have someone that only does a couple edits a week, you don't compare them against the person that does 1,000 edits a week. You can look at it as a whole, as a group, and see how much did I contribute as part of this group.
10 minutes.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm having some issues with the images loading, so hopefully I can get through this. There's a lot of other ways you can look at this information. This is all from the revision table in the wiki, in the database. You could look at, over the course of a year, how many pages were edited by a person and how many of total revisions. You can categorize edits based on, categories of pages, and you can see like, hey, this person edits a lot of pages in this category versus that other category, and maybe we can learn something about what person is interested in. We can look at a wiki as a whole and see how diverse our contributors are. In this plot on the left, it's showing as a portion, a whole sum of contributions per day, how many contributions were made by each person. So I think I'm the main person when I first started the wiki. We got a couple other people contributing. And then fast forward 2 years later, and we've got the people editing. And I think these visualizations can be fun and can encourage people to say, hey, yeah, let's get more people to participate. We can do that instead in stacked bar charts. We could even do a simple pie chart. There's a common rule around the internet that of any given internet resource, typically you'll see about 89–90% of the people only view the content they consume, and then roughly 9 or 10% edit existing content, and only 1% create new content. And so I took a look at what our state was after 5 years, and it turns out we're doing pretty good. So I should see, are we still following with this trend? So I've shown a lot of ideas, a lot of metrics, but I'm curious, how do you measure success from your wiki, necessarily in it, but how do you make sure that your wiki is providing value to your organization? I'll turn it over to Q&A.
All right, thank you, Daren. Does anybody have any questions? Ryan.
First off, I use Watch Analytics, and if you don't already use it in an enterprise or business setting, you should really consider it. I assumed the same question that Daren did, that because we have a wiki and because people can view changes that people were, and that's not true. This gives you a lot of insight about how well your users are reviewing pages. But Daren, your kind of overarching theme here is how well are people measuring their company's wikis or the success of it? And it's kind of an open question. Do you have something you're working on? Is user journey a part of it, or is it still pretty open for you?
Yeah, well, so I mentioned I started user journey, I think it was 2015 when we were in St. Louis. That was my pitch that year, or I'm not sure if I pitched it or just talked it in the group. I thought that was the solution. I thought, hey, if I can entice people through either competition or collection or whatever method works to edit more pages and make more edits, then we're winning. I thought that meant success. But then I thought, well, what if they go game the system and they just make 100 edits for the sake of making 100 edits? Is that really going to provide value to my organization? There might be some, related improvements, but I don't know that that's exactly what I was after. What I really am after is I want people to add useful information. How do you measure useful? I want people to review information, make sure it's up to date. Well, I can sort of measure that, but even the method that I use now for reviews assumes that a person reads the change, that they don't just click through it. So there's probably other ways we could measure that. We've talked about maybe adding another feature to Watch Analytics where there's a button that either says I acknowledge the change or I vouch for the change, or some other smart word to indicate that they put their name on it to say, yeah, I agree with this, as opposed to just, yeah, I see someone changed it, but I don't have anything to say about it. There's a lot of ideas out there. But I'm trying to stir up conversation here.
All right, Greg.
Yeah, hi. One of the things that I do to measure success, one of the things that's important for the customers that I deal with is really simple, just repeat visits to the wiki. So what they call that is retention. And I really just wanted to speak up just to let folks know that if you install Google Analytics on your wiki, hoping that you're going to get some good retention reporting, you won't, because the Google Analytics system just really fails at it. It doesn't. I've got a large public wiki that I have another set of analytics running using Adobe Analytics, and I know that we've got good repeat visitors, but the Google Analytics system says that our repeat visitors or our retention is practically zero. So you can't rely on Google. And I think that repeat visitor or retention, that metric is a good metric to focus on. But I guess the answer is maybe you have to install something like an Adobe package, or for free software, there's the Matomo, formerly known as Piwik. The Matomo is a free and open source web analytics system. So you can install that next to your wiki. And that's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you. You run.
Yeah, I was wondering for that user journey thing. Have you talked to users? Do they find that inspiring, motivational, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or similar
So
user journey. Yeah.
yeah. So a few years ago, I showcased it everybody, but I kind of picked and chose some people and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And some people thought, "Hey, this is awesome." The people that are driven by competition loved it. They wanted that competition chart immediately. Said, "Oh yeah, this I'm gonna win it all." But not everybody is drawn to competition, right? There's other people that want to collect things. You know, they play Pokemon, or there's lots of other types of people in terms of gamification. But then I don't know, the classification of people based on the content that they edit and the categories of pages that they edit. I think some people saw value in that. But then like the manager types, they weren't really like excited or geeked out about it necessarily. And that kind of threw me off. I thought, you know, hey, we can actually show you on a per person basis, like how active they are. And for whatever reason, they weren't really drawn to it. So, you know, that kind of made me question, like, hey, am I approaching this the right way? Am I measuring the right thing?
All right, thank you. Bob.
Yeah, as a PhD in psychology, here's a trick for you if you want it. Is to basically salt the wiki with lies, okay, with things that are not true, and then direct individuals to check some pages, and the positive reinforcement they'll get for having corrected the erroneous information, okay, will get them to stick to the page more, okay, and continue to want to watch it.
That's an interesting idea. I think that maybe plays a little bit off of the if you ask someone to do a favor, draws them closer to you, kind of mental trick or whatever. But I'd also be careful because there's also a lot of naysayers still. I mean, even after years, there's still people that say, "Oh, well, we can't trust the wiki. It's not an official document or whatever." And I would be real careful to not feed those trolls. But I get your point about guiding people to finding meaning in their contributions by giving them something that they can contribute. I think that's the point of what you're saying.
Yeah, and in fact, you have to be careful of how you salt it, right? Exactly, and you have to have a targeted experts that you're trying to bring in, and then. But yeah, but I'm not doing what you're doing, but that would be a fun thing for a guy like me to do.
All right, last question from Ike.
Just regarding Google Analytics. So it seems like a lot of browsers, including Firefox, started actually blocking these type of tracking scripts. So it's one of the reasons Google Analytics is not as accurate as it used to be. What we started doing is we use Matomo, but instead of using the JavaScript tracker that's included with the extension, we actually fill up our data based on the server logs. And we find that that works very well.